We live in this world that's just moving at an incredible speed, a world of massive change, where something that happens on the other side of the planet can literally change our lives overnight. Today, we're going to dive into the huge force that makes it all happen: globalization.
I mean, just think about it for a second. You can order something from halfway across the world and it shows up at your door in a few days. You can stream a brand new movie from another country the second it's released. So it really makes you wonder, right? What is it that's making our world feel so small and move so fast?
Well, here's the thing. The answer, the real game changer here, isn't just that we're connected. People have been trading and talking across long distances for centuries. What's different now? Well, it's the absolutely mind-bending acceleration of it all. The single defining feature of modern globalization is its sheer, relentless speed. So let's get a good working definition here. When we talk about globalization, what we really mean is the increasing economic, political, and social interconnectedness of the entire world. It's about everything: how we buy and sell things, how our governments work with each other, and how our cultures and ideas mix and mingle on a truly global scale. Now, this crazy acceleration didn't just pop out of nowhere. It was fired up by three massive engines, all working together, that completely reshaped the world as we knew it. Okay, so what are these three big drivers? First, you've got the rise of multinational corporations. Second, the growing influence of international governing bodies. And third, and this one's a big one, a complete revolution in technology. Let's break them down.
So those first two really built the framework for all of this. Multinational corporations, or MNCs, created this whole new playbook. The idea was you keep your high-paid knowledge workers, the designers, the engineers, at home, but you move the actual manufacturing to places where you can find low-wage labor. And at the exact same time, you had governing bodies like the European Union starting to prioritize the smooth flow of goods across whole continents, often pushing back against the individual goals of any one nation.
And then you add in the technological fuel that lit the fire. Every one of these innovations made the world feel smaller. The telephone? Suddenly you could move across the globe and not lose touch with your family. That's huge. Radio and TV started beaming the same news, the same music, the same culture into millions of homes at once. And then, of course, the internet came along and put global commerce and a fire hose of new ideas right at our fingertips.
But it wasn't just about information flying through the air. The physical world itself was literally being rewired. After World War II, the automobile became king. Entire cities, suburbs, and even the countryside, especially in Europe, were torn up and redesigned for roads. This didn't just make it easier to get around. It created a hyper-mobile society and plugged areas that were once remote right into the brand new global economy.
So all this new connectivity, the roads, the TV, the internet, it wasn't just moving people and shipping boxes. It was moving culture. And you know what? That created some pretty serious tension.
In fact, people started using this really powerful phrase to describe what was happening: imperialism by entertainment. The whole idea was that one specific culture, mostly American culture, was basically conquering the globe, not with soldiers, but with blockbuster movies and hit TV shows.
So why did this happen? Well, it really just boiled down to simple economics. If you were a TV broadcaster in Europe, it was way cheaper to just buy the rights to a popular American show than it was to try and fund a brand new production from scratch. It was a business decision, really, but one with massive cultural side effects.
And this sparked a really deep cultural conflict. On one hand, audiences absolutely loved it. They were captivated by this slick, new, exciting entertainment coming out of the States. But on the other hand, a lot of critics and everyday people started to worry that the values packed into all that entertainment were slowly chipping away at their own traditional cultures, their own sense of who they were.
But, the pushback wasn't just cultural. As this global economic engine just roared to life, making more stuff and burning through more resources than ever before, well, the planet itself started showing the strain.
Of course, environmental damage wasn't a new thing, but the sheer scale and speed of this new globalized, unrestrained capitalism basically put it on steroids. The kind of pollution that started way back in the Industrial Revolution was now happening everywhere, all at once.
And then, a few major crises really brought this home for everyone. In the 1970s, you could literally see it in major rivers being choked by industrial pollution. Then, in 1986, the Chernobyl disaster happened. And it was a terrifying wake-up call that environmental catastrophes do not care about national borders. And out of all this anxiety, a totally new political force was born: the Green Movement.
This green wave was a direct response to globalization's environmental bill coming due. The German Green Party, for example, got huge support by taking a stand against nuclear power, and pretty soon, almost every country in Europe had its own Green Party. And these weren't just protest movements. They got people elected and started passing actual laws to try and fight back against all this ecological damage.
Okay, so we've looked at the big picture stuff, the tech, the culture, the politics. But now let's bring it right down to earth. Let's look at how these giant forces actually show up in the things we see and use every single day.
It sounds like a simple question, doesn't it? But the answer tells you pretty much the entire story. What on earth could a plain old chocolate bar have to do with the massive, complex machinery of globalization? Well, as it turns out, everything.
Let's take a company like Nestle. This is that multinational model in a nutshell. You have the headquarters, the high-paid strategists in a place like Switzerland, but the raw materials and the low-wage labor to process them come from places like West Africa. And then that final chocolate bar is sold to you and me and everyone else all over the world. It's a model that is incredibly efficient, economically speaking, but it also opens up some really tough ethical questions about labor and who benefits.
And on the political side of things, you've got the European Union, which is basically globalization turned into actual policy. As an international governing body, its whole purpose is to create one single, gigantic market. It does that by making standardized rules and focusing on the free movement of goods and people across borders, putting the success of that collective market ahead of the desire of any one country to protect its own industries. So, here we are. We live in this hyper-connected, incredibly fast world. We've seen how it can create enormous wealth and spread ideas like wildfire, but we've also seen the cultural conflicts and the environmental fallout. And all of that leaves us with a really big question to think about. As our world keeps getting faster and more connected, who really bears the cost of all this progress?